Someday I'll get it right. All right, we'll start in a minute. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to give it another minute or two. I know you're a couple of seconds behind me, but I figure I'll give everybody a few 2 minutes to get acclimated. Thank you, Brenda. Hi, Shirley. To me, it's a beginner piece. Anything that doesn't have a lot of floating is pretty beginner. Hi, Jean. Hi, Liz. And apparently, from what I've been hearing since I've showed this piece, is that people have a really hard time with hydrangeas. Oh, Vinny, I miss you too. But did you hear that I will be back there in 2 months? In June, I will be back. So make sure you tell them you need to do my programs. Because I am so excited about going back. I know a lot of people are not excited about me leaving here, but as bittersweet as it is, it's time. And we can chat. We can chat about vacation. I know nobody's gone, but... Oh, Shirley, I know. I was going to announce it at the end, but one of my favorite people at the library is on. We are, and I'll say it again at the end, we have next month's class, and then we're going to go back live in person. So we will not have any more Facebook Lives here. And it's very bittersweet, and I'll be very sad, and I will miss you. But I'll be online. Not as often. Me too. Me too. Hey, Nanette. Oh, guys. Okay, don't be sad because it'll make me sad. It's time. It's a good thing that we're going back to our routine. How's that for a good word? We're going back to our normal routine, and we all need to go back to our normal routine. My goal is to do one a month on my own Facebook. So you're not getting rid of me that easy. But we all need to go back to our routine. Okay, ready? Set, go. I want to start. All right, hydrangeas. Okay, a couple of things first. You have questions? Ask me. I will try to pay attention and answer. I will also answer them at the end in writing so that you'll have the answer if you need to go back and see it. Okay, now, a bunch of people contacted me about the background. When I do backgrounds, you can do any background you want. I used Vintage Effects. Vintage Effects is almost like what white lightning used to be. So it's a beautiful whitewash, but it comes in other colors. So here it is in berry, so it's a dark red. It gives you a nice, almost a stain, but it's a wash, and it gives you a really nice background. Okay, of course you can do your background in anything you want. All right, we're going to start with leaves and stems. I paint from the back out. So when I had you base coat, I didn't have you base coat the bulbs because we're going to make a mess in them. And that's okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out some Plantation pine and we're going to float. Now, I'm going to go through floating with you. This is my beginner class. I need to shake my paint. Make sure your paint is shaken well. I'll use this one. Okay, so when we float, there we go. 4 steps. Wet, blot, load, blend. Oh, There's our date for our beginner class next month. Okay, I always use a chisel blender. I use it because it's shorter bristles. The shorter the bristles, the easier it is to control. Okay, so I wet. You'll see the shine. I don't know if you can see it. There's a shine on the bristles. So here's your bristles, here's your ferrule, here's your handle. Blot flat. You'll watch the shine dissipate from the chisel edge till it hits the ferrule. As soon as the shine dissipates, lift. So it's wet and blot. We're going to load. Let me break that bubble. Hold your brush as perpendicular to the paint puddle as you can. I'm only going to pick up a little bit on the corner. You see how much is there? Just a little bit. And then on a piece of scrap paper, we're going to blend. And we're going to blend in very small strokes. I don't want to do this. You're going to lose all your paint in here. Okay? So wet, blot, load, blend. What you're looking for is a graduation of color. If, let me do this. If your paint pulls across, that means there's too much water in your brush. If you this and you get this skipping, that means there's not enough water. But often, it's just a matter of keeping it in very small strokes. Okay? So wet, blot, corner load, blend. You know I'll lose this paper and not know the date. I never use less than a 12, ever. Okay, first thing I want to do is separate. So when you use a darker color, you're making the item recede. So when we float, my brush is perfectly flat, all the bristles on all the surface all the time. And what I'm trying to do is push down, push this leaf behind this leaf. Try not to do this. Could you see that? See the difference between that and that? That looks very choppy. You don't want that. Okay? When you reload, wet, blot, load, blend. Say the steps as you go, because then you won't miss one. What happens is people often miss them, and that's where the problem is. That was a bad float, huh? If this is your first time floating, keep in mind it takes a little bit of time to get it down well. Don't knock yourself. It'll just be a little bit of time. Okay? So, a little bit wet there. What I'm trying to do, and let me see if I can explain this on here. The dark makes the item recede. So, let me do this. What I'm trying to do is I'm making this leaf, let me pull that up. So that's probably better. I'm pushing this leaf down behind this leaf. If dark makes the item recede and light brings the item up, there would be no dark on this area here, okay? Because this is going down and this is coming up. So now that I've said that, I'm going to show you something because I'm going to float it again. Float on the bottom object in the shape of the top. Okay, so the dark is on the bottom. There is no dark on the top. Okay, so you're in the shape of the top. Can you see that? All right, now I'm going to show you. I'm going to start up here. We're going to shade. What are we doing? We're floating leaf separations, Emily. all of our leaves, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So here's your leaf. This leaf, you can't see that very well, can you? Would, let's see if that shows up, would be here. Okay? So you always have to, there, now you can see it. You always have to remember that. So when we shade the base of the leaf, what we want to do is we want to push down this area of the leaf. Okay? This down, that'll pull this up. So we're going to wet, blot, load, blend. Now when we shade the base of the leaf, I'm going from side to side. I'm not going, that's a bad float, huh? That's too much water in my brush. Let's see what that is. And you can see my float is this way. My float is not down this way and up this way. Then I would create a V. Okay? So I'm from side to side. When we do, this piece is so long. When we do the base here, you have to remember, let me just, sorry, I loaded the wrong side of the brush. Okay. So wet, blot, load, blend. And we're going to go here, and we would go here. Now, you see how that looks like a V? The bottom of the leaf is not like that. So what we want to do is we want to round it out and come across. Now if you notice, I'm not too concerned about this mess in these flower bulbs. We'll fix those. I'm not worried about that. Okay, now if you need to soften it, this is what's called a mop. It's not, I know some mops have like really, trying to think of the right word, soft, really soft, and it just kind of plops. This has got some hardness to it, but it's not really hard. And to soften your float, just tap up and down. Don't try to move it, and don't do this. Very, very, very. So I see how I'm just touching. That's all I want to do. Okay, so now I'm going to come, and I'm going to do the base of this leaf, but I'm also going to separate it from the stem. So, well, let's do this first. We'll do this, and then we'll go back. And I'm going across the bottom. I don't know, I've been floating all day. You'd think my floats would be better. And I'm going to come, and I'm upside down. You can float it either way. I'm upside down so you can see my element as opposed to seeing my hand. Just getting some more paints. Okay, wet, blot, load, blend. And I'll say that a lot so that you hear my voice. Again, we have a little stem here. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to come outside the stem. And I'm going to come across. And I'm going to mop just a little bit because I'm having yucky floats tonight. And then we'll come here, and we'll do the same thing here. And that's a real mess, huh? Okay, so now if you have a real mess like that, I had too much paint across my brush. Sorry for my arm. Just take a Q-tip, use Q-tips from the dollar store, wet it, and just pull it right off. okay? And it'll come right off. So then I'll just go back in. And I'll do it again. So, nothing you paint will you be married to. Hi, Helen. Nothing you paint you'll be married to. The only real problem we have is in base coating if you kind of blob it on. So if when you're base coating, you come in and let me just get a crappy brush. And when you base coat, you should be nice and smooth like this. If you come in and you want an opaque finish right away and you do this, you'll have all these little lumps here, and there's no way to get rid of those. Those you are married to. So really, other than that, there's nothing you're married to. Okay. So I've shaded and I floated, remember, wet, blot, load, blend. I have floated the base of my leaves and I floated the separations of my leaves. Now you can see if they're wet. Can you see that shine? There's no shine here and there's a shine here. If there's a shine here, that means it's still wet. Okay. So now we're going to float. And the difference in this float is we're going to wet, we're going to blot, we're going to corner load, but when we corner load, we're going to pick up a teeny, teeny, tiny bit. See how little on the brush I've done? So you don't move to a smaller brush, you just pick up less on the corner. And I'll blend just the same. And I'm going to float the top of the stem because we're pushing it under the flower. There's a stem here. There's a stem here. And there's a stem here. Okay. And we're going to flip. And we're going to float the bottom of the stem. The bottom of the stem because we're pushing it again under the flower. And the bottom of the stem because it's going under the leaf. Okay. You guys are so good. Nobody's had any questions. Now, when I look at this, well, no, we still have something else to do, so let's do that. So I know I repeat myself, and I repeat myself because I feel if you know why you do something, it will help you when you're doing something else. So dark makes the item recede. So if we're trying to push something underneath something, as we did with the stems, as we did with the base, as we did with the separations, we want to use the dark. But we also have to remember our leaves go under our flower bulb. So with our paint towards what we're pulling up, I'm going to float outside my flower bulb. Now, one thing I find when people are in front of me is that they don't go wide enough. Remember, when we tap in our flowers, we're going to tap onto the leaves so that we ensure they're above the leaves. So go wide enough that when you tap in your flower, you'll still see your shading. You don't want it to be a narrow shade. So see how wide I am? So I'm going to flop over to here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want to pull this up. More paint. The floating is not wonderful tonight, is it? Just an FYI. Not everybody, not even me, floats perfect all the time. We'll make it look like it's perfect, but it just doesn't always do what you want it to do. Okay. I thank you all for being here with me. I'm here on Long Island, and it is a rainy, rainy night. It's been a rainy day. So now if I get paint on my background, I'll take a Q-tip and just wet it and rub. And you can rub pretty heavy. Now, I don't know if I told you, use Q-tips from the dollar store because they have less cotton on them, so they're much better for painting. I've made a mess out of this background. Okay, so now, hi Kim, we're gonna go in and I want to darken. So in painting terms we say reinforce. I want to reinforce the base of my leaves. I'm using the same Plantation pine, but you see how much darker it is from here to here? Sometimes some colors, Plantation pine being one of them, they're opaque enough that you can't get a good deep color. And I didn't want to go to a darker color. And then we'll come in and we'll, let me see the difference. And I'm wide. See how wide I am? I'm going to deepen here. Now sometimes we reinforce with the same color, and sometimes we reinforce with a different color. In this case, I just want to deepen this color. And I'm wide. Hi, Virginia. Who's sad, Helen? I'm not sad. No sadness in this world. We're happy. Okay. Now reinforce here. I didn't pick the best piece to demo on. It's big. Okay. And then we'll do one more. Now my stems I feel are fine in my coloring. If you don't feel your stems are deep enough, then reinforce them. I'm sure you can hear the rain. My studio is all glass, so my walls, my ceiling, and everything. So when it rains, you can hear it. So hopefully it's not affecting you hearing me. Okay. So you see how, if you look at this now, you can see I have my separations. My leaves are under my flower bulbs. My stems are falling under my flower and under my leaves. And the base, and the birdie make me laugh. And the base is pushing down so that my leaf is here and then the top comes up. So it's a dimensional leaf. It's not all further down. Okay, now I'm going to take some. I wasn't going to tell. Don't be sad. I'm not going anywhere. You guys aren't getting rid of me that easy. We need some light lime. Now, I know some people ask me, this is light lime. Light lime is just a light green. So you could use mint julep. You can use... I'm looking right at the colors. And pistachio mint. You can use pistachio mint. Anything that's a lighter value. Now, if you notice, when we do things, we have, we base coat in our medium value. We shade, which is to set something back, in our dark value. And then we will do our light value. And our light value will bring it up. And that'll take our flat green leaves, push them down, and pull them up. You see that? Okay, so we're going to take, now we're going to dry brush. Now, you can dry brush with a white bristle dry brush, which I don't use anymore, so I don't have them. I think I gave them all away. But they look somewhat like this. Somebody just gave me this. I don't even know what it is. This is a fabric brush. But they look somewhat like this. And they're hard bristles. Okay, you could use, excuse me, a sable dry brush, which looks like this, which is our soft dry brushing. I'm going to use the Stencil Pro. I use Stencil Pros a lot. They're synthetic stencil brushes, and they're a good, firm bristle, but they're soft enough to keep moving. Okay, so I use the brush dry. I'm going to pick up my paints. So I've loaded the whole thing, the whole brush. I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to move that so I hope I remember the date. I'm going to scrub. This brush is indestructible. I'm going to scrub till there's just about no paint on there. You want a very scant amount of paint on there. So if I this, that's too much paint. So here, because remember, whatever paint is on there is going to be on here. We want it to be nice and soft. So I went from here all the way to here, which you can barely see, and that's what I want. So we're going to dry brush the center of our leaves. So I'm going to come in, and I'm just going to scrub a little and give us a nice dry brush. I'm going to make that a little wider. And you can see I'm doing the center of the leaf. I'm not making a polka dot. I'm not making a shape. I'm just brightening the center so that I pull up the center of the leaf. I'm not going to the edges. So I'll come in here. If you hit the shading, that's okay. It's not a problem. I do not have a blob of paint. You see how soft that is? And I'll come here. The most work on this piece is on your leaves. And I will probably do all of these leaves from that one load. And you can put on a pressure, as long as you've pulled off most of your paint, a pressure from a 1 to 10, you could put a good 8, 9, even a 10. And we'll come in here and we'll scrub again. Now, if you're running out of paint, you can reload. Of course you can reload. Okay. After you've dry brushed, then you can wash your brush. Because once it's wet, you can't use it until after. So you make sure that you use it until until you can't anymore. And then you can wash it. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to stay in our Plantation Pine, and we're going to float our center vein. Now center veins go from the base towards the tip, not to the tip, towards the tip, and it does not go straight. You are not taking a leaf and dividing it in half. You're going to curve one way or the other. This way, it doesn't matter. So when you put your brush down, where you put your brush is going to be the heaviest stroke. So that's why you have to float from here and not this way. So here's my heaviest float, and I'm gonna just curve. You see what I did? Doesn't matter which way your paint is facing. That makes no difference. Okay, it doesn't matter if you scoop up or down. It's just a little bit. You start your center vein in the center. Okay? And here. So my center would be, this the other way. Let me keep my hand out of your way. Yeah. Now the picture you have from the library, Facebook, or my Facebook, it may not be the same direction. I may have gone up instead of down, or I change them all the time. And you see how I'm moving my hand? I'm not moving my hand, I'm moving my piece. When you're floating, the goal is to keep your hand comfortable, not the piece comfortable. Don't try to move your hand like this to float so that your hand is uncomfortable. Move your piece, and I pull towards me. There are students I know that pull away from them, and either way is perfectly fine. It does not matter which way you're pulling. Do whichever way is more comfortable for you. Okay? Okay. And if I'm going too fast for anybody that's painting along with me, just tell me. I feel like I'm going slow enough. But if I'm going too fast, just tell me. Okay? I don't think I missed anybody's questions. So if I did, just tell me. Okay. So, now, remember what I said. Dark makes the atom recede, light brings it towards us. So, areas that we definitely have to pull up is here, because this is on top of this, and here, because this is on top of this. I know this is shaded, but it's shaded to push down the base. We'll have a very light float there. So we're going to come in and we're going to float with our light line, wet blot load blend. And again, start from the end, and I'm going to float right along the edge. It's a narrow float. It's not a wide float. And you see how I just pulled that off of there? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to create that dimension. And this dimension is created with dark sunlights, as all dimension is. Well, not all dimension. Some dimension is created with size. So the small, not on leaves, because there are just some smaller leaves, but when you're doing landscapes, if you make a tree that's smaller, it's usually further away. Birds in the sky, clouds, smaller clouds are further away than larger clouds. Okay. So now, so I've separated these and brought them up. So now I want to take my leaf, which is somewhat dimensional, and pop up some areas. Now, does it matter where? No. So I'll just float a little bit on the edge so that part of it is coming up. Part of it is at one level, part of it is higher, and part of it is lower. And that gives me more dimension. So you see how much more dimension is on this leaf than this leaf? And that's just simple. And I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm just doing here and there. So on this one, I'm just going to do right here. And when I say do, I mean float light. I just trust you to know. Okay, so by doing that, I've taken my leaf, which, let me see if I could. Okay, here. So I started with my leaf this way. When I added some dark, I pushed down some area and I added some light and I pulled it up. So instead of adding dark everywhere and just getting lower, or light everywhere and just getting higher, I now have 3 layers of dimension. So this leaf is pushed down under the flower bulb, but the tip of the leaf is coming up. So kind of think of it, and not that this is a good analogy, but think of it kind of as diagonal as opposed to flat. Okay? And I'll add a little bit of light here. Now, like I said, there is not a right or wrong on where you do your highlights, where you do your shading when you're pushing them down. That matters. There's not a right or wrong on edges you want to pull up. Okay, so you don't have to follow what I do. You know, my goal is you do the technique right, you understand why you're floating the color you're floating, and then you'll have it right. Okay, I made a mess there, didn't I? Now, in your prep, I told you to base coat and then put matte medium on. If you did, hooray. If you didn't, it's okay. Just be more careful about the background. If you put matte medium on, it's just real easy to get paint that you don't want on off. That's all. There's nothing, you didn't do anything wrong by not using it. Okay, so again, wet, blot, load, blend. You will have flowers that you don't have to float. Okay, so I want to make the center of my leaf more dimensional. I shaded, and you can see which way your brush went because you have the darkest area and then it graduates. Okay, I want to go right up against it. So where your dark is, that's where I want my brush to touch. So go right there. So one side is dark and one side is light. If I had to put 2 brushes down, they would touch each other. Okay. This one went this way, and I can see that because my dark is here and it graduates this way. So I want to graduate the other way. Okay. This one goes this way, and I know I keep moving my piece and sometimes it's upside down so that you can see, but you also should be doing that because here, and my hand's going to be in your way for a minute, but I want to show you. Okay, so if you're doing here and you have to put your hand like this in your brush, this is not comfortable. Okay, it does not feel natural. Here is natural. Okay, so don't think you're doing something incorrectly if you're moving your piece. When you're comfortable painting with your hand in every direction, then you're ready to paint on a wall or a piece of furniture that you can't move. As long as you can move it, move it. And I am no different than you. I move my piece all the time. Much easier. Now, remember what I said, all the bristles on all the surface all the time. All of my bristles are down on my surface as I'm floating. I am not holding my brush on an angle like this. If I hold my brush on an angle like this, I don't have this graduation here. Okay? And you need that graduation. So the whole float, the wet, the blot, the load, the blend, all the bristles on all the surface is what gives you a nice graduation of color and a nice depth. Okay. Okay, now our stem. We're still floating in light line. There's not a lot of colors in this piece. And we're just going to float along one edge. Left, right, I don't care. Here, I choose this side so that it separates it from the leaf. But it doesn't really matter. And then this one down here, I'll do the same thing for here, for the same reason. I'm not going to have a lot of questions to answer tonight, am I? I hope you're all painting with me and you're not having any problems. Okay, so you see how now I've created all this beautiful dimension? Those leaves look really good, don't they? As yours should look exactly the same as mine. Okay, so now take your liner. Now when you use a liner, and I'm going to do this in dark so you can see. We're going to wet. You're going to go from the water. Okay, so water. I blot quickly on my paper towel so that I don't have dripping water. Okay, I wet, blot. I go into my paints. I'm going to pull from the side. I'm not going to twist. I'm not going to twirl. I'm going to pull a little. And when I paint, when you use a liner, use it straight up and down. Let me make sure I'm on screen. I'm straight up and down, and I'm just using the very tip of my bristles. Pressure from 1 to 10, like 0.5, not 5, 0.5. Such little pressure, and that'll give me a nice thin line. If you hold your brush back in the crook of your hand, this is what you're going to get. So you see the difference in the width here? You want to be, and that's, okay, so the rule for your liner is water, blot, paint. Straight up and down. Okay? So with that, we're going to create our side veins. Now, side veins come from the center vein and they come out and up, out and up. When you get to the other side, you're not starting at the same exact spot. Those are angel wings. We don't make angel wings. We make side veins. So we'll come here, and here, and here. So we finished off that leaf. And we'll come in. One side, I hate to say this and I'm sorry, one side will be easier for you to do, and that's because your hand naturally moves one way or the other. If you're right-handed, it'll be the right side. If you're left-handed, it'll be the left side. Don't stress it. Oh, that was a bad one. Should do that side first, huh? I usually turn it upside down and pull it towards me. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. They're thinned paints. You want it to be, and it doesn't matter, you could do all on one side or you can do one, that makes no difference. Do whatever is easiest for you. Just don't have them connect. They can be close, but don't have them connect. I don't want you to count. I don't want you to say, oh, there's 3 here and 4 here and 6. Just do what fits in your leaf. Every single time I paint leaves, it's a different amount. So that's okay. I just kind of do it, and I don't worry about how many. And sometimes there's 3 on one side and 4 on another. It's no big deal. That's okay too. I needed a smaller piece, sorry. One squeak. Here. So far, in this whole piece, we've only used 2 colors. We've done these beautiful leaves. Oh, that's a bulb. With just 2 colors. Now, you can always tint your leaves. I wouldn't use red because I have no other red in this piece. And your color's gotta carry through your piece to have a correct composition. But you can do the pink that we're gonna use. You can do blue. Blue's pretty. Okay. And those are our beautiful leaves. Okay, now, I know many of you have hydrangea issues. One of the tips, and I'm going to talk for a minute, so finish your leaves, and if you need me to slow down, just tell me. One of the big tips to hydrangea bulbs is don't focus. Don't try to be perfect. Don't, and I've done hydrangeas where every little petal of every little leaf, but that's a whole nother thing. These are just hydrangea bulbs. They're very simple. There's nothing much to them. Let's first we're going to do it in steps. The beginning, and we're all caught up, right? Okay, so you need French gray blue and Shoreline. Okay, I know colors are hard to find. Here's French gray blue, which, here's a big secret, is being discontinued in the 2021 colors. So if you have it, hoard it. And this is Shoreline. Okay. So we're going to take some French gray blue and some Shoreline, because the French gray blue is too dark and the Shoreline is way too light. So I kind of have about that much. I'm going to take my filbert. I'm using my filbert because it has a rounded tip. Now I'm pulling a big one to base coat. This is exactly how a sub for Shoreline. Whispering Turquoise. Do you have Whispering Turquoise? That's a good sub. Okay, so I'm going to pick up, and I'm picking up a good amount. And then I'm just going to pick up some Shoreline. So, oh, can't even see it, huh? So they're both on the brush. I'm not blending. I'm just going to come in, and this is how I'm going to base coat my bulb. Don't give it too much thought. Okay, good. The more thought you give it, the harder it's going to be. And I'm just going to come in, and look, I'm just patting. When I get to the edge, I want an irregular edge. I don't care if it's not totally base coated. I do want you to go over the stem. I do want you, and see that? They already kind of look like I have a hydrangea. A little bit. And the rounded part of my filbert is a sub for French gray blue. Eek. Williamsburg. Williamsburg will be a little bit bluer. Uniform. They're all just a little bit bluer. But you see, I'm not creating like a round circle. I have the rounded edge of my brush that's creating what would be background flowers. And I'm just kind of pit-patting it in. My paint is pretty heavy, see that? And that's okay, because they're flowers. And I'm just... And then I'll do the third one. And you see how it's looking like a flower already? And I'm here. Now, see how I went over the edge? I'm not creating a perfect, I'm going over. Some might be higher, some might be lower. That's okay. That's how the flowers fall. So you see why I didn't care if I got anything inside the bulb? Because it makes no difference. You don't see it anyway. Okay. So I've got my nice little base coating. Now you can see that my flowers, okay, so I'll tell you in a second. Liz, I am base coating because I'm lazy with a 12 filbert. But when I put in my petals, I'm going to go down to a 6 filbert. And you can do this with a 6 filbert. I'm just a little bit lazier, and I don't want to spend a lot of time doing it. So you can see now that my flowers are the closest thing to me because they're going over each element. And in going over those elements, I'm pushing back the leaves. Okay? Does that make sense? Hopefully. Alright, so remember to always keep the rounded edge of the filbert towards the outside of the flower. Alright, so you need your 2 blues, of course. You need coral shell. You need warm white. And then you need a separate puddle of warm white because I want a clean puddle. Now, I'm going to show you on a piece of paper what I'm going to do. But what I'm going to tell you is do not be anal. I don't know if that's a good word, but if you try, and this is the problem people have with hydrangeas, okay? I'm just going to do this in blue so you can see it. And I'm going to pick it apart first. So hopefully that'll take care of it. I'm going to tap and twist just a little bit so that I have a point. I'm lifting. Pressure and lift. Pressure and lift. Pressure and lift. Now, do they all come out perfect? No. There shouldn't be that much room. But kind of like that. You see how fast I did that? Now watch. That's how fast you could be doing these. Okay? Don't sit here and say 1, 2, 3, 4, because it'll make you crazy and they'll look really ugly. I hate to say it that way, but when you try to get it too structured, look at the difference between this and this. I don't even care if these all have these points. You can just kind of tap, pressure, pressure, pressure. Because we're going to dot some of them and they're going to overlap with each other. Okay? So, if you look, and not that it's set in stone, I have my blue, and we're going to have to do it again because it has to be wet, but I'll explain that to you. I have my coral shell up in here, and I have my white up in here, okay? I don't want to create quadrants, but I want them blending into each other. I just am telling you this and then I'll show you. I want you to kind of quickly, and they'll blend into each other. So we're using 1, 2, 3, 4 colors of paints, but you can see I now have a couple values of blue. I have a couple of values of coral. I have a couple values of just white, okay? And this one's lighter than this one. This one's bluer. That's okay. So, we need to be wet. So we need to be wet so that you can have color to blend into. So I'm going to take my 2 blues, and I'm kind of going to just get some in there so that it's wet. I don't have to go to the edge anymore. I already created the edge. Now I'm going to pick up the shoreline, just the shoreline, which is the lighter blue, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll see some are lighter and some are not. See how fast I'm going? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I go over the edge, that's okay. The edge is our guide. Now, I don't clean my brush. I just wipe it out. I'm going to pick up some coral shell. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not creating a line. I'm going right into the blue. I'm going to do coral shell and I'm going to add white to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not enough white. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Sometimes you don't get a 4. I'm going to wipe it out. And I'm going to be all white. Now when I'm all white, look at what I'm doing. I'm picking up the blue because the blue is still wet. I have the coral still in my brush. 3, 4. I want to come over this edge because I don't want that harsh blue edge. And you see how they're blending into each other? Just check if anybody's commenting. They're blending into each other. The lighter the color, you'll see they appear to be higher. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I see a very distinct line here which drives me crazy. So I'll just come in with the blue and I'll add some blue. And you can see I still have orange in my brush. And by creating all those values with all those colors makes all the difference. I want that orange. Okay, I have this spot here that I'm not in love with. So 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay. That is all there is to it. Once we put the yellow center in, it'll look totally different. Okay, but do you see how I've gone from this to this? And you see how quick I did it? I was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Besides the fact my color underneath would be dry, so I would have no value changes. They would look way too uniform. So we'll do it again. Okay. I'm going to come in with my base coat colors and just get them in so that I have a wet base to work with. I don't care if it goes to the edge. We've already created that, and we'll have some that go over the edge. Okay, I'm wet. I have a good amount of paint on my brush. I don't have little bits of paint. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that was a bad 4, huh? But I'm not worried about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm wiping. So if you look at my paper towel, I'm constantly this. I'll leave it here so you can see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. I might do blue and some white together. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is going to create a whole nother value. And you can see my French gray blue is still wet, so I'm creating another color. So I'm going to take my coral shell and I'm up in this corner. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when you make hydrangeas, look at the brush. The bigger the brush, the bigger the flower. The smaller the brush, the smaller the flower. Now here I took coral shell and just picked up coral shell and white together before I go to pure white. Now, I put in more coral shell because I like it. If you want a brighter flower, add more white. You know, have some more white flowers. If you want a bluer flower, have more blue. That's not a problem. If you don't like the coral shell or you don't have it, pink is a really, really pretty color in hydrangeas. I don't know why I did these in coral shell, but I did. There used to be a color called Highlight Flesh, which is what I did instead of white on every hydrangea I did. They don't make it anymore. Breaking my heart. Is anybody struggling with these? I know they don't look like a flower yet. All it's going to take is a center dot to make it look like a flower. And I just clean my brush when it gets real gooky. I don't know if that's a word, but in Linda's world it's a word. They're just quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you need to count while you're doing it, count. Okay. Let's have a shoreline one here. Now, here I have a yucky one. I don't know what I did. So, I'll just put another one right on top of it. That's all. That's a real easy fix. See how I just took that out? And they just go over each other. Okay, now this one's lighter than this one. Does it make a difference? No, just the way I did it. So now we'll do this one. Now, is everybody getting the stroke and getting what they're doing to create the 4-petal flowers? You got a glare there, huh? No, still got a glare. Sorry. That's wet paint. Okay, so I start again. I kind of tap, tap, tap. Like I said, a lot of paints because we want it to... Thank you, Shirley. Are you getting yours in? Are you having an easy time doing these? I know a whole bunch of people told me they were so excited because hydrangeas stress them. And trust me, just an FYI, anybody who knows me knows I'm a really, really, really tight painter. So having to do drives me crazy. But short of taking every single petal and shading and highlighting, which I do. This is, and these are pretty. I have these all over my house. Years ago, Viking, and I don't know if they still do, they made switch plates. And you could paint on the side of the switch plate. It was wider, and the up and down thing. I don't know what it is. The, I don't know how you turn light on and off. And then this whole side was paintable. So I have all hand-painted switch plates in my house. One with an iris, and I have hydrangeas, and I have a rose, and but they're real pretty. They're real pretty. I'm just watching 4 petals really help. Okay. All right, Vicki, what are you struggling with? Are you going too slow? If you're going too slow, that will struggle. So we're here. Slow and steady. The slower you go, the harder it's going to be. And I say this at other things, and I'm saying it right now, and I mean it. If I could tell you to close your eyes and do these, you would do much better with them. Because you're not trying to get the perfect 4-petal flower. I don't want perfection. You don't want perfection. Not slow and steady. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see how fast I just did all 3 of these flowers? And that's, you have to get out of your head, oh, I need to do slow and perfect. Hydrangeas, these hydrangeas are not slow and perfect. These have a lot of looseness. That's a good word. Looseness in them, which is very uncommon for me. So take it while you can get it, because I don't get it too often. Everything I do is as tight as a clam. And remember, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And just count them. Watch me. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you see how fast I did those? 1, 2, 3, 4? And this one's very orange, huh? Let's get some white. One, 2, 3, 4. I don't think about it. I just kind of... Doesn't matter if the petals are touching. It doesn't matter if they're not. These are illusionary. And you see how many times I wiped out my paper towel. I don't want it to be in your way. I'm just giving you a minute because I think some of you are still working. And once you do, you have to cover the entire background. No, absolutely not. So if you look, I'm going to pull it up. You can see all my blue in there. You see all my original base coat in there? You can see all of that. Every single wear. Here, 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 here. No, the base coat is there. It's dark and it's there to create that depth. And you can't have that depth without being able to see it. Okay? Now, hopefully you're all caught up to me. Well, we've got time. We're almost done. On my original, I have these falling petals. I have them here and I have them here. These are more structured. They're done the same way, but they're more structured. They're the French gray blue tipped in the Shoreline. And pressure, release the pressure and twist. Okay? I'm pulling from the bottom towards the flower. Okay? So what I'm doing, I'm picking up, I'll just show you. I'm picking up the blue, and see how I just kept going back and forth? I'm picking up the French gray blue, and I'm picking up some Shoreline so that I have them both. I'm going to start here, and just think of them as they're falling off. And those took me a little bit longer, because I want them to be falling off. I want the little petals. Oh, I went off the screen, sorry. I want the little petals to have that point. Here, they're part of a big ball, so you wouldn't necessarily see the point of each petal. And even if I was doing these very tight, very Linda, they would not be perfect, and they would be shaded here and they would be highlighted here, and they'd all come together in a perfect little flower. These would be exactly as they are, because they're the shape of what they would be on the flower. Okay, so you should have those in, right? Hopefully. Now, we only have one more step. You guys did so good. See, nice beginner hydrangeas. You need a little tiny bit of cad yellow. You need a stylus or a toothpick. You can use a liner. It'll take you longer. I do not want you to use the back of a brush. If you use the back of a brush, the dots will be too big. So, when you look at your piece, let me show you here first. I'm going to show you on both. But if you see these yellow dots, this will give us, here's my 4 petals, here's my 4 petals, here's my 4 petals. These are what we call our top flowers. So if you had a rounded hydrangea, these are our top bunches. And you'll see them on yours. You could see them very distinctly once the yellow goes in. Okay? You can use a toothpick. I'm going to use a stylus. Mine's pretty thin. And a stylus, in case you don't know, you just pick up the paints and you plop it and you get a perfect dot. They come in, I don't know, 6 different sizes. And if you don't have them, if you don't have one, you can get one at a beauty supply store. They call it nail art tool or something. I don't know. But it's a stylus for painting. You can also, Michael's probably has them as an embossing tool. All right. So I'm going to look, and here's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to dot in the center of it. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you can't see a perfect 4, you can still put a dot. Don't make yourself crazy. But what we want to do is we want to show that some of these are flowers. Okay? And you, wait a minute, let me get these in, and then you can see the difference between flower bulb 1 and 2. So go here. Sometimes you just gotta make it up. And here, like, I don't like, so I'm just gonna put one there. And that'll pull up these 3 petals anyway. So now that I've put my centers in my flower bulbs, look at the difference between this flower and this flower. Can you see that? This, let me just wait a second. You guys are on a little bit of a delay. Okay. I just want to make sure I was on the screen. So you see how this now all comes together with those dots where this isn't yet. And on a hydrangea, it's just those dots that make all the difference. And here, and here. Watch when you put your hand down, you're not putting it in the paint and smudging it. Okay, and here. Here, there is no rhyme and reason, because there's no rhyme and reason to how you painted your flowers. I'm just dotting what we're perceiving to be our top flowers. Okay. Emily, are you looking to see how I did the flower bulb or the falling petals? Okay, just tell me and then I'll show you. And you see how I just pulled that together? And then I'll just do the same thing here. That's all there is to simple hydrangeas. And you can paint them on everything. They really look pretty. Just be colorful. And don't have like coral everywhere and blue everywhere. Have little sections, because that's how they are. And believe me, as much as I love my flowers, hydrangeas for me are the toughest to do because they're the loosest to do. I do better with really, really tight. Let me see. The falling petals. Okay, give me half a second and I'll show you. And I'm dotting. Now, is anybody going to know if you put a dot in the wrong spot? No. Hold it back and look at it and see if you can tell. There's one there. See, so now when I look, I see right here is missing. Okay. So, I'm going to do it on paper. I'm just going to move this so that I can... Okay, so when you do your falling petals, you're going to take your filbert and you're going to pick up both blues. You're going to use pressure, and as you lift your pressure, you're going to turn your brush. So it's going to start here and end here. Okay, so pressure, well, not that much pressure. So 1 to 10, maybe a 3. And the minute you start pulling is the minute you start turning. You pull, as you pull, you turn and you release pressure. So by the time you get here, you're on the very, very edge of the brush. See, like that, very edge. Okay, so pressure, and by the time I do pressure here, I'm at a 0.001. Like there's almost no pressure here. You know, practice it so that it's pretty quick. It's a quick stroke. You don't want to spend a long time on it, but you just want it to look like, and it's the same stroke as when you're doing these petals, but it's falling and it's going towards the flower, almost like a teardrop. So pumped my flower looks like. I'm so glad, Brenda. I don't know if it was you. Somebody told me that if anybody can get me through hydrangeas, it's you, Linda. So whoever it was, I really hope that I did. Okay? And I would love, of course, to see everybody's. Okay, so then, of course, you varnish. Now, if you have a piece that has an edge, I didn't paint it yet. This one I did. I always, here's my tip of the day. When I'm dry, I varnish, and then I come in and I'll paint this, because then you could just take your brush, if you get it on here, and go like that, and you will have a perfect clean, because this is already varnished. And it doesn't matter if you get varnish accidentally, like in here. It makes no difference. Okay, next class. And I said this before, and I'm going to say this again. Next class is our last class. I'm so sorry. I really am. Don't be mad at me. It's very bittersweet. We need to get back to life. It's very bittersweet for me, because we've been here for next month will be 16 months. So I did this. This is what we're doing. You're going to learn how to dry brush with a mezzaluna, so you do need a mezzaluna. We're going to stencil. You don't have to have this stencil, but just have some kind of stencil. We're going to do some floating. We're going to do some separation. This is a phone stand, which when I first did phone stands, I said, what do I need that for? But let me tell you, I use it all the time. See, and then it sits like that. I also did it on a plaque, like that, which I didn't varnish it yet, which I should do tonight. I had originally done it this way, and then I said, oh, maybe that'll be too many. I don't know. But you can write something here. You can move the leaves. So either one is fine. This is May 20th. Our intermediate class, just in case you weren't here and you didn't see it. I did it on a tablet stand. Both of these, Tracy Morrow, she has them. And this will hold your tablet, which I love. And these are done in fluid acrylics. You can do them in washes. And I stamped the background, so we're going to play with stamps. If you don't stamp it, you can stencil it. Okay? So there's lots to do on this. Oh wait, I have my calendar. Which I never do, because my studio is such a disaster. Now you all know the secret. May 10th. So this is the 10th, this is the 20th, and then I'm back in person. So I'm sorry. And anybody who's on my Facebook, I've already picked my June projects that I'm going to do for you, and I put it up there on the surface you should buy. All right, let me flop you around. Hi, Janet. I'm so pumped. Oh, Marie, I am too. She's out of stock. She's out of stock. Then go to Viking. Viking has them. VikingWoodcraft.com. Let me turn you around. Hi. Okay, so We can sub colors and we can do things. So I do hope you're all here with me for our last 2 classes. Oh, Patty Rawlinson does have them, but Patty Rawlinson's is different. Hers is, there, especially the tablet stand, is totally different size. Okay, Canadian Stockade has them. All right, so there's lots of places to get them. I will put it up 2 weeks before class, so yeah, I'll still be here. So I'm doing that. Stay safe. And we'll have a good 2 more classes, okay? All right, so have a good night. Thank you all for being here. If you need help with your hydrangeas, just message me. I'm happy to help you. All right, or contact the library and they'll contact me. All right, good night. Thank you.